Hello, I'm David O'Sullivan, and today we're here to talk about your in-laws. Every marriage comes with its fair share of challenges and opportunities, ranging from different approaches to finances, homemaking and raising the kids, to plans and aspirations for the future. And if your spouse still has an involved parent or set of parents in their life, they could be central to many of these challenges and opportunities. Add to this the union of a different set of cultures and backgrounds, and it can be even more challenging on the marriage and home front. What characterises a healthy relationship with one's parents-in-law? What are the pitfalls? And how important is it to set constructive boundaries from the start? Sam Cowen and Hlubi Mboya are joining me in the studio today to unpack many of these questions, providing tools and thoughts to help you make your relationship with your in-laws less of a challenge and more of an opportunity. Now remember, this conversation is being broadcast on Facebook Live, and our viewers are more than welcome to post questions in the comments section for further discussion later this IRIS session. Now let me introduce our guest, Sam Cowen, best known as a former co-host of the Breakfast Express weekdays on Joburg's local radio station, 94.7 Highveld Stereo. After leaving the Breakfast Express, she took over the afternoon slot on 702 before leaving radio last year. She's also the best-selling author of no less than 4 books: Waiting for Christopher, Good Enough Mother, The Irreverent Mothers, and the latest memoir on drinking from whiskey to water. Radio, TV, writing, she does it all, and she says chocolate as well, mostly chocolate. Now, Hlubi Mboya is an actress on television and on films. She's a social justice activist, Jeep team athlete. I'm going to have to explore that if I have time. Team Evox Elite, yes, that we need to unpack. And executive director of Future CEOs on cliffcentral.com. She also made her mark as an AIDS ambassador with her role as Nandipa Sithole on the TV soap Isi Dingo. Hlubi's graced the covers of a number of South African magazines, including True Love and Elle. She married her longtime partner, Kirsten Arnold, in 2016. And of the two of them, I don't know who is the bigger overachiever.
It's her.
It's her.
It is ridiculous.
I want to be like her, Dev.
Oh, don't.
How much you've both done in your lives. It's remarkable. And Sam, 4 books is... It's a mission to write even one, and you've managed to get 4. Are you busy on a 5th? At the
I am
moment?
busy on a 5th. But the way I write a book is I tell everybody for a year that I'm writing a book and do nothing about it, and then I write the whole thing in 2 months.
That's a smart way of doing it. What is Team Jeep ambassador?
As you explained, it's a group of really high elite athletes. I'm not necessarily the strongest or the fastest, but I just have a passion, and when I set my eyes on the prize, I usually do achieve it. So it's a just great group of people, really sporting and athletes and globally recognized, and we just do our thing well.
Right, we're here to talk about in-laws, and
Yes.
we've all got sets of in-laws.
Yes.
Okay. Sam, let's start with you and your relationship with in-laws. Has it changed since you got married?
Oh, very much so. When I got married, I married into a very proper family. My mother-in-law would do tea every single day at 3:30. It didn't matter what was happening. There was going to be a tea tray and a cake, and you had to eat with a cake fork and a napkin. And I think she worried that my husband Martin was going to marry somebody who wasn't very proper. And as you know, I'm about as proper as a box of cigarettes.
Yes. Yeah, her worst fears were realized.
Yes.
So who had to adjust to whom? Was there a meeting of minds, or did you have to do initially all the give?
Oh, very much so as well, because I hate it when people don't like me. You know, in school when you'd go, I just want you to tell me to my face. I don't want you to tell me to your face, to my face. Rather tell a friend when I'm not listening. And my mother-in-law made it very clear. She disapproved of me. I did nothing right. My political views were wrong. And so I would sit there waiting for it to be over. I went to the toilet so often when I was sitting in her house, so I could just sit there for 5 minutes and not be in the room. She must have thought I had a bladder problem.
So, and the father-in-law, how was the relationship there?
Well, he ran the UN peacekeeping force for the family. So he'd try and find topics.
I thought you were going to say he really did.
So did I.
I didn't know that about
No,
Martin's
but
father.
he'd been marvelous. He really would have been marvelous, because he would try and find topics that we could talk about, that we could both have a more neutral opinion on, beige topics, if you will. But it failed every time.
Did it improve over time?
It took 4 years. It took 4 years. We agreed on nothing. We didn't agree on our political views. We didn't agree on how I was being a wife. In fact, she gave me a book once called Eve the Griffin about how to be a good Catholic wife.
Oh my God.
If ever there was a message.
And it was a great doorstop for quite some time. But then after 4 years, her sister died, and she was very, very close to her. And we went down to KZN for the funeral. And it's a very big family, and everyone had their own opinions on how it was going to run. And because I hadn't spent a lot of time trying to get to know the rest of the family, because I was battling so much with that, I could mow through all the different quirks and politics and just go, well, this is how we're doing it, and this, and this, and this. And afterwards, she said to my husband on the way back, I'll never forget, we went to the littlest church at Van.
Oh, yes. That tiny little church.
There
just
you go.
Peaked, up on the top there, I know it.
And I went off to the bathroom, see the pattern. And she said to my husband, I still don't know if she's right for you, but I think she's a very good person.
And did you hear her say that?
No, my husband told me afterwards, because he was basically high-fiving all the things all the way home. Because he had to sit in the middle of it as well. Because he'd had to sit through me in floods of tears in the car on the way home, saying, why doesn't she like me? Why doesn't she like me?
And did that change the relationship?
Very much so. But also, at the risk of sounding like a motivational speaker, I had to take ownership of the fact that up until that point, I thought she's never going to like you. So you've got to treat this as a campaign and just work out little tricks to make sure that whatever fight is brewing, you can dispel it. So she would say something wildly controversial, and the left-wing pinko liberal in me would chew on my cheeks. And instead of doing that and hating it all the way home, I'd go, you know, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
I didn't add in, I'll never think about that, ever.
Yes.
But I said, oh, you know, I've never thought about it like that. And the tsunami would just ease.
Okay, well, I'm going to get some
Good
more
tactic.
tips on how
Good
you did that. It's a good way of doing it. Now, Hlubi, as you're listening to that, I'd like to think that your marriage is so young and so new that none of this is ringing a bell.
You know what, David? We've been married for 2 years, but been together for 15. So, yeah.
Okay.
So it's been a family network for over like 20 years. What's different, what sets us apart is that Kirsten's parents are both not on the continent.
That was a fist pump.
I
saw
don't know.
that.
No, they weren't. Only Sam saw that. I'm joking. Oh my God.
You're in trouble. When you get home.
His mother's staying in Australia, remarried, and his father remarried in the UK. So the times that we really get together as a family are over the holidays or every 3 or 4 years. But I think the problems really lie when they come over and they stay 3 months in our house. So I think that's where this conversation is for me.
Yes.
But otherwise, it's a beautiful relationship that I have with them. And my parents love Kirsten to bits. I mean, he is, there are two of them, it's him and his brother. And we've got a big family. And because his parents are not here, I mean, he's
So
their child.
We're really going to explore this possibly from the point of your parents being the in-laws rather than his parents being the in-laws. And how your parents react to your husband. Did going through the marriage, did that change any relationship given that you'd been together for so long?
It was, I think the only thing that really hit home was the fact that we took so long to get married.
Why did you take so long?
We were happy, we were having
Yeah, I get
fun.
it.
You know how it is. And then I think still to this day, I mean, I'm 39 years old and we haven't started a family. So I think just together, our combination, we're late bloomers. We like doing things late, and that's okay with us. I think
so.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, very much.
Sometimes.
Listen, I got married at 39.
Thanks, David.
Don't even worry
Okay,
about it.
so I
First
shouldn't-
kid at 41.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, I'm the older dad always, but
With the hot wife.
Yeah, thank you very
With the
much.
hot wife.
My
Hot
wife's
wife?
Very hot wife.
Yes, yeah. 12 years younger, you see. We did this on a
Hey.
previous show. You missed it. But you know what for me was important is that I'm much closer in age to my in-laws, given that I'm 12 years older than my wife. So it actually was easier for me to establish a relationship with my father-in-law because he enjoyed watching sports, going for some beers. He could speak my language. And so I wasn't the son-in-law. I was more, I don't know what you would
buddy,
call it,
the friend.
buddy-in-law.
Yeah.
It really was that. And so it was a much easier, we connected almost immediately, where he's not the guy who's going to be giving me fatherly advice. Because I'm going, dude, I know all that stuff already because I'm a bit of an old bullet. But for you, Hlubi, it's not just a marriage of families, it's a marriage of cultures as well, isn't it?
Correct.
Tell me about that in terms of the in-laws, the parents feeling you out, sussing you out. How did that go down? So you've now got to go back to pre-marriage days.
I'm a lovable girl.
That was the longest silence we've ever had on the show.
I'm trying to think it through. I'm a lovable girl. I do have respect for them. I make their son happy. And on the flip side, my parents are classists. It's not even about race or anything. They sent us to good schools, and as my father, and I'm always a daddy's girl, he just wanted a man that could make his child and his daughter happy. And at the end of the day, education is everything, especially for, a family, a black family of that generation.
Yes.
I mean, he's a professor of education. We lived in the suburbs, we really had a good upbringing, had a great childhood. Kirsten, at the end of the day, he's from really a hard working class British family. They are from Liverpool. They come from a family that used to work on train stations, so it's really the working hard class upbringing. And he was raised by a single mom, so we've got really different backgrounds. My parents are still married, 30, 40 years of marriage. So I come from a real intrinsic and good family upbringing, the nuclear kind of family upbringing. So it's a lot of combinations, but I think the more different we are, the more consolidated we are. Our marriage was Scottish and closer tradition. I didn't go for the white wedding vibe. And I loved that, because it was just about celebrating. There was the bagpipes and then there was the closeness. It was a really spectacular and beautiful wedding. So when it comes to relationships within our family constructs, it really is great. I mean, Kirsten isn't the first white man any of my father's daughters have brought home. So it's not about that anymore. Cooley Roberts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it really is just about making ends meet when it comes to his daughters, making them happy, and giving that stern concern of, I brought my daughter up in this way and in this lifestyle and this educational mindset, bring it.
So there was never a clash of identities going on. To marry a Xhosa culture and a Scottish culture seems to have come quite easily for this family.
Very easily. I think that my husband and my parents get along so well. It's actually, I feel more left out when the four of us are together, because he's a hard worker, he's ambitious, and that's all my father wants. He's a businessman, and my mother's a businesswoman extraordinaire. So they've got a lot of commonalities. I think for me, it's more woman to woman. It's me and his mother, because she's a single mom. So they really have a strong relationship, and he's really protective over her. And often the arguments are just about him and any man just being a mommy's boy, and now I'm the woman in his family. And, and at the end of the day, I still want to make him happy.
Right.
That's my mother as well, you know what I mean? So that is always a point of discussions.
And I think that's so interesting that you said that, because I think a lot of mothers make the rod for their own back when it comes to their sons. Because I've heard moms, I'll tell you, my son's nearly 14, and I hear other mothers on the side of the rugby field going, any woman who comes into his life, I'm just going to give her the hardest time. No one is good enough. And these kids aren't even old enough to drive themselves on a date. And I listen to this and I'm thinking, someday a woman is going to come into the house and you are going to hate her instantly, no matter what she does, because that's what happened to me. And you're going to miss out on time with your son. Forget time with her, time with your son, because he's going to choose, and it is not going to be you.
It's never us.
You go forward, you can't go back.
Yeah, correct.
So your mother-in-law, she decided from the get-go you were not the right person for Martin.
She wanted something completely different.
Did you try and work at persuading her that you were the right person, or did you just have to weather the storm every time you visited?
So I did try.
You couldn't change your political beliefs.
No, I couldn't. And so that was the, I never thought about it like that.
Okay.
I tried to bake. She was a huge baker, and I once made this amazing cake. Well, I thought it was amazing. And my husband came in and he said, I hate it when my sister tries to sabotage your relationship with my mother. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, the way that cake's iced, clearly Jane had a hand in it. I was like, that was me. So I tried to do that. I wore a lot of long skirts. Not a word of a lie. I went and bought clothes that I would never have worn because she was an extremely proper lady. I knitted in public because she knitted in public. Every now and again, I threaten the 13-year-old with knitting on the rugby field, and I watch the face just go green.
Yes, please don't.
But I tried. I really did try, and eventually, and it was stupid. It was stupid because eventually I was so filled with resentment that every time I went there, I was just boiling. I was just boiling, and the two of us, we wasted 4 years.
But David, don't get me wrong. I think Kirsten's mother and I are very similar in a lot of ways. we do get along. It's just honestly, you know, the stories as old as time, mother-in-laws. I mean, they have movies about that. You know,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So we're both Pisces. We're both creative. She was a very much an activist in her day and age. Very much an activist in her day and age. So we've got a lot of commonalities. It's just we've got those moments of time whereby we're fighting over one man.
Was there ever, your family could look past race and class and just accept your husband, Kirsten, for what he was, and they got the elements of his being a hard worker, the entrepreneurship,
That's
and all
what-
that. Could his mother do that to you? Look past race and class.
Absolutely.
So it was
Absolutely.
really about who you were as a personality rather than anything else.
Absolutely. And honestly, it is just two women loving the same guy, to be honest. As basic as that may sound. And especially when it's in a household, you know what I mean? When they're living with you, you know what I mean? It's just the power of attention, the power of communication, the power of spending time.
Yeah.
Just those basics, you know? And you know what? For me, sometimes I feel like I'm selfish because she's here visiting for 3 months and then she's going to go back to Australia.
Right.
You know, for another 3 years. So I just pull the reins back a bit on my sense. But sometimes I feel that maybe she'd stand up for me a little bit more, you know?
Okay.
But I don't want to...
But do you think she's got your back?
Oh, yes.
That's important.
That has to be. And you know what? We're at an age where they're getting old. My God, I don't want to live a life whereby they pass away and there's bad blood. I never want to be in that position. So as much as I stand up and we have those arguments, by the time we're at the airport, I have to have left things in peace.
Yes.
I have to.
And you're right.
You know what I mean?
You don't know what's
You
going to
don't know.
happen.
You don't know what's happening. What about you, Sammy?
Do you know, at the very end, when we knew she was dying, that last 2 months is tragic because you watch someone that you love, and I had come to love her, just falling apart. And one of the things she loved was roses. And because everyone was so worried about her, she was still at home, her rose garden died. So what I used to do is I would go and visit 2-3 times a week, and I would go to the florist down the road and ask them for all the roses they wouldn't put in the bouquets because they'd either blown out or they just weren't perfect. And I'd bash them around a bit more in the car, and I'd say, I picked these from the garden for you.
She never knew
And
her rose
she
garden.
never knew.
had died.
She just loved it. And she would watch, she loved her old movies right to the end. Even when she lost, she'd lose who you were, or she'd forget that she'd ordered tea. At the end, she loved her old movies, her Bandwagon, her Fred Astaire, and I used to sit through the same movie over and over again. And she'd explain it to me over and over again. And I would pretend I'd never seen it over and over again because I knew that was the way I could show her that I loved her. She wasn't the kind of person you could go, I love you.
Okay.
She'd have
Yeah.
hated that. She'd have been crawling over the couch. But I could bring her the flowers. I could eat cake I didn't like, and I could watch films I'd seen 1,000 times. And that showed her, you know, because I did love her.
Sam,
did
I'll
love
tell you, your roses story resonates on so many levels. And the thing is that you could have gone and bought a nice bunch of roses and said, I picked these from the garden. But the amount of detail and attention that you paid to that, these had to look like they came from her garden.
They
So
did.
they've got to look like they weathered the storm outside. It showed me how much, it explains how much thought you put into that process. You spoke about how you had this fractious relationship, and then there was that moment where she said, I still don't think she's right for you, but she's a good person. Did she ever express those sentiments to you?
What she did was when I had my children, I think she was very worried because I also kept my own surname. And when I got pregnant, she
But
was
for
very
radio
edgy.
reasons.
For
you
radio
were-
reasons.
Yes.
But she got very edgy about what the children were going to be called. And I thought she meant the Christian names, you know. So I was like, no, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, it's going to be the other. And eventually Martin said to me, she's worried that there won't be Blignotes. And I said, obviously there'll be Blignotes. For me, it was, as you said, it was a radio reason. And as soon as she found that out, it was almost as though whatever gift I had needed to give her, she had it. And so she would help me with the kids. I'd go around going, this child has not slept for like 5 hours, 7 hours, 10 hours, 70 days. And I remember her saying to me once, as I was sitting there shaking into a cup of tea, she said, you know what, Sam? Samantha, she never called me Sam. She said, this is a wonderful lesson in God's unconditional love for us, because you'll get nothing out of that baby for another 6 weeks, but you'll love it anyway. She said, don't worry, after 6 weeks they smile, and then it's worth it. But I thought, what a sensitive thing to say, because
Yes.
everyone's always telling you you'll love it instantly, it will love you back, it'll smile, and you look at this screaming thing that you feed, And I wasn't instantly attracted to my children. I had no idea what I was doing. And to have that from somebody who
That's
I thought
wonderful.
would be very judgmental because of the way she was, who got it, who did the 80-year-old equivalent of going, I got you.
Yeah.
That was
Love
special.
that.
It
Love
seems
that.
though, had you rebelled, had you not gone out and made the effort with the long skirts and learning to knit and all of those things, you would never have got that relationship.
No, I
You needed to actually stand back in order for that thing to finally work.
Yeah, very much so. And I knew as well, I had a fractious relationship with my granny. And I think I deprived myself, because I saw the way my granny treated my mother. I mean, she'd come round to stay also for ages, and then she'd move all the furniture while we were out shopping. And she'd say, Mike would like his chair in front of, my dad would like his chair in front of the window. And my mother would just look at her house like, this is my home, you know? And so with her, I think I wanted to know my children would have a grandmother who would just be everything to them. And she was. They still remember her granadilla cake. And Jem was 2 when she died. They still remember her wrapping the Christmas presents and then telling them that they could shake them, but they couldn't actually, you know, they couldn't open them before Christmas. They remember all of that. And they've got that. That is the gift I can say that I was instrumental in giving my kids. And I wouldn't have had that otherwise.
Does Martin have sisters?
Yes, one.
And what's the relationship like? What was the relationship like between your mother-in-law and her daughter?
They were very close. They were very close, and a lot of comparisons were made. A
well,
lot
that
of
answers the
comparisons were
question.
made, yes.
And did you find that you looked and thought, how do I live up to the sisters' standards? Was that ever an issue?
There was a time they were sitting knitting together, and I was like, right, I'm going to get the needles out. Fine, because I've got a naturally competitive instinct. I wish I didn't. I was like, right, you're making a scarf, I'm making a beanie.
That's right.
It was like that. It was like that. And then once Marion and I had got to the point where we could talk to each other, obviously not about politics ever, but we could have conversations about the children, about whether or not Chris should be outside, with bare feet. It was fine. It was easy. There was no judgment anymore. And that was the thing I'd struggled with the hardest, is 4 years of being, you are so wrong, you are not right, you are this, you are that, you are the other. That was what I battled with.
Hlubi, go.
One thing I can say that Kirsten's mom never necessarily had to say that or said that about me. I know that deep love. But the kids, it's not about me and Kirsten having kids. It's really about them having grandkids. Because obviously Guli, so my parents have got the grandchildren, but she hasn't, So she's always sending her neighbors pictures of newborn babies in Australia to us on WhatsApp groups, little black babies. I'm like, okay, I get the point, Penny. But I think that would really just tone things nicely down for us as a family.
Yeah.
I think it'll actually give her a reason to move back home, to be honest.
Sure.
And that would be great, I mean, her husband was Australian and he passed away, so she's just settling all the civil duties there and all the pension and retirement things there. And I think us having a child should move back to South Africa. And we wanted to, because as much as there's like a bit of tension when she's here, I'd rather honestly have her here, living in her own house.
Yeah. Well, yes, but you wouldn't mind seeing her once a week if she went home.
You know what I mean?
As long as they go home.
So, just having, grandchildren are a big thing for them as parents.
Yeah.
Well.
Do you find that possibly you would bash heads with your mother-in-law because you're both big personalities? You say that you're very alike, and I'm thinking, oh my God, there's another one like you?
You know what? My mother's also got a big personality, and I honestly think that Kirsten's mom and I have a lesser explosive relationship than me and my mother. We're all very strong, independent, fierce women. It's just, there's a lot of strong personalities in my family.
But is there room for both of you in this kitchen scenario? Do you think that's what happens if you're going to start bashing heads? It's because it's too much extroverted behavior going on.
Very much, very much.
But children are the great leveler.
They are, David, they are. And as much as Penny wants us to have, my mother also wants us to. It's just a woman thing, and just being a grandmother and grandchildren, and they are so open to being a support structure. And I'm not going to stop my crazy life. I know I'm going to have to slow down.
You won't.
Really?
You won't.
No.
Promise.
But I don't think you have to.
No. That's giving them off to Granny. That'll be great.
There is nothing nicer. They will love it.
They will love it?
Did you find that was the case? I know your mother-in-law was this proper lady, but I'm sure that once the children were there, and once she understood their identity, they were taking Martin's surname.
They got away with murder. I mean, Chris would sit there eating his cake, And as children, that squeezing of the cake, so it comes through the fingers.
Yes.
And I'd say, Christopher, stop that. She'd be, don't worry, Lammy. And I didn't even mind. I know you're supposed to fight over that, but he would just look up and give her this smile full of granadilla and go back to what he was doing.
Yeah.
You know, and grandparents do things for children. I mean, I see it with my dad. My dad is so proper, so proper. They had a lot in common. And my daughter throws herself on him every time she goes to visit. Hello, Grandpa, I love you.
Wonderful.
You're the best. And he doesn't know what to do with it, but he loves it.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Whereas we would never have done that. You don't do that with my dad. And it was the same thing. They used to go there, hurl themselves on her skirt, ask for cake, ask for cold drink. You know, and grannies and grandpas are supposed to do that. They're supposed to say, I'm not going to give them any sweets. And the minute you drive away, get out a big bag.
Yes.
That's what grannies and grandpas are supposed to do.
But how did that improve your relationship with your mother-in-law? Now that the kids were there, was it because there was now something that you had in common that you both loved? You were trying to always find middle ground. Now there was middle ground. It existed naturally, the two kids.
And there was no judgment. So she didn't judge how I parented the kids. She didn't judge how I dressed the kids. And I was subconsciously waiting for that, to be told, oh, he shouldn't be in that, he shouldn't be in that. What? And there was none of that. She just loved them.
That's awesome.
And we could share that. She never told me, don't put the kids in school, put the kids in school. She was just granny. And I loved that. That was when I saw the kind of mom she had been to her kids. And I just thought, she's fantastic. She's fantastic.
I really want that.
When did you first, I'm going to
really
explore
want
that
that.
one in a bit
I
more
really
detail.
want that.
When did you first realize, oh my goodness, I do actually love her. She is actually fantastic.
Funnily enough, that funeral, because I watched this lady go down and her sister had died so quickly, so quickly. She actually had a stroke during Mass. So
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
as devout Catholics, it's the best way to
Hey,
go.
good place to go.
It really was. But she went down and there was just mess everywhere. You know, there was family coming in from Ireland and there was family that we'd never met before and never met again who arrived and needed somewhere to stay. And she was torn to pieces dealing with family politics and dealing with putting together a service. And I just covered the politics. Right, we need this made, we're going to make it. We need this tuna put into vol au vents, we're going to put it into vol au vents. You know, you need somewhere to stay, Martin and I'll go stay up the road in a lodge. It was just one of the, I'm very good at practical stuff when it's someone else's practical stuff.
Yes.
And I realized then that she actually wasn't this horrible, proper, you know, matriarch. She was also a sad woman who'd lost her sister, her second sister, who was in agony, and everyone was looking to her to fix everything. And she was broken herself. And she was still trying to fix everything, and that's when I loved her. And I thought, I'll do whatever it takes this weekend so she doesn't break.
How long did you have then between that realization and her death?
We had a long time. We had close on 10 years. Close on 10 years. And as I say, the kids, once the kids came, we were cruising. The rest was gravy. The rest was gravy.
But she never ever gave you an outward display of affection?
Occasionally she put her arm around me, but that was it. That was it. But she wasn't a demonstrative person. And I really think it was a generational thing. I really do. I used to hug her and she'd kind of put her arms on my waist as though, well, we're doing this now and we've done it and it's great. Back.
It is, there's a cultural thing about it as well. I mean, my parents were very much like that as well. They weren't the huggy, affectionate type. And so I'm making sure that we are definitely that in my family. Hlubi, can you remember meeting your mother-in-law for the very first time?
Yes.
What was that moment like?
I was nervous, obviously.
Kirsten would have briefed her.
Yes, Kirsten
and
would
said,
have briefed her.
Were you famous? Were you famous at that stage?
Yes, I was.
Were you a Nisidingo at that stage?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so you're meeting Nandipa.
Yeah, so was she. I think for the first 5 minutes when I walked in, and Kirsten was still staying with her at the time. And
wow, that's a
East
mommy's
Rand.
boy, isn't it?
Yeah, I say nothing. In the East Rand, and the East Rand boys. Kempton Park.
Kempton Park, okay.
You know,
Hey,
salt of the earth.
Roger Federer's from Kempton Park. Well, his mom is.
Salt-
It is salt of the earth. I'm from the next suburb down, Edenvale.
Salt of the earth.
I know that type of person.
And I think that the first 5 minutes, obviously just the Nandipa phase, but then afterwards she's a mother, you know. She was like, come in, it's nice to see you, I've heard all about you, all the good stuff. And she was great.
You made a comment when Sam was talking about the relationship between her mother-in-law and the kids. And and you said, I want that.
I do.
But there's every reason to believe that is going to be the case. If she's already dropping the subtle hints, children, please.
I hope so.
Speed it up.
I really hope so, because she loves kids, and I think that'll be, I mean, if she had to come back and live here because of that, I don't want her to be lonely, you know, and I don't want to push her into finding and remarrying yet another man, you know what I mean? So I just want her to have a sense of family and be busy with the babies. And I think really it'll just calm down the temperament that we sometimes find ourselves in, as Sam said. And
it rubs off the edges.
It
just sands you down.
does. And that's a great reason to...
Well, I'm glad that the relationships have turned out well. We didn't want to make this the dragon-in-law show.
No.
But this is the healthy mother-in-law show. And though, for both of you, not without its challenges, and you've been able to overcome them. Quickly, can we just look at your parents as in-laws? Sam, how do your parents relate to Martin? Have they been able to engage with him immediately? He's a likable man, let's
my mother
face
was shocking. She fell in love with him straight away.
Mine
She really did. I would go in and we'd all be having all be having a braai, and my mother would dispatch me to get drinks for people. You know, and Martin would be sitting on the couch, and then she found out that he liked certain things. I can't even remember offhand what it was, and she kept buying it for him until eventually he was like, "Please tell your mother that I don't like it anymore." You know.
Yes, yeah.
She found out he liked a specific kind of whiskey. That's what he got. He mentioned that he wanted to start wearing cufflinks. Suddenly, all these cufflinks appeared. She was a shocker. She was an absolute shocker. And my dad was my dad. He would have been like that, I think, with anyone who didn't have a criminal record. It was like, right, is my daughter happy?
Correct.
Yeah.
There are no returns. That's actually what he said to Martin. When Martin asked
No
him to get married.
returns.
He goes,
I'm
"Just
not having
remember,
her back."
There's no returns, seriously. And he's still like that, you know, still reserved. But it's not about Martin, it's just about the kind of person that my father is.
And your folks
My mother completely adores anything that Kirsten does. Like, I hear things about her through him. And I'm like, what do you mean, you know? It's a great, I mean, I'm blessed for that kind of relationship, Dave.
Yes.
You know, I love that kind of relationship. My father obviously just had to warm up a bit because my father is like that. You know, he just susses people out for a minute. And then he was the one who actually gave us the pressure to get married. He's like, "Okay, kids, what is going on? Kirsten, do your thing," you know. Kirsten was actually banned from the house after being together for, 15 years, because he was like, "You're not coming into this house again until you marry my daughter. We've been playing it too nice for you, you know, for the fact that you're taking 15 years. You know, and that's just his style of dealing with things, my dad. But I think Kirsten has given and earned the respect that my father has now finally given him as being a husband.
Because I said it was not only a marriage of people, it was a marriage of cultures. How much culture went into the pre-marriage? Did he have to pay lobola?
Of course. Pardon, I was like,
And you must have been so
Yeah,
expensive.
geez,
no.
How
you know,
many heard?
And I don't know. You know, we don't know those things.
Oh, you don't know that?
No, she
Did the
never know.
uncles come? Was there the full negotiation?
Yes, and Kirsten loves that. Kirsten really loves the black culture, you know, and obviously my father was so taken the fact that and in our culture, to ask for your daughter, you write a letter. And Kirsten went through all of those things. You know, my father responded in an email because he's an academic like that. Kirsten really didn't have to do it like that. I mean, he wasn't pressurized into it. It's something that he wanted to do, and it's something that he was excited to do. And part of his kind of male, fatherly, unclely congregation for the lobola were really not only just black men, just the elderly that he looked up to, and that my father could respect as well, not just some chummies, you know. So it's important, you know. So I think for that was just the first drop of love that any parent would have for somebody not of color to take it to that detail and meaning and intention. So that's really, really special, and I'll always love Kirsten for really taking that to heart. And he didn't have to try, it wasn't a pretense, it was comes naturally to him. But just above and beyond that, my mother and Kirsten, Craig Arnold are just, they're so close, and it's great. It's great.
We've got happy families. All happy families.
We have to be.
Phil, we've let you down.
Yeah, I do feel that.
That's so.
I need life lessons here. But I think as we wrap up, I think there are plenty of life lessons we've got here through the anecdotes. But let's just work through some of the things that you did, Sam, that to give advice to anybody who's battling with their in-laws. What advice are you going to give based on your own experience? I realize the word compromise is going to come up quite a lot here.
Well, I think the important thing for me was to realize that she wasn't going to change. That was not going to happen. It wasn't going to be like a movie where my mother-in-law was going to see what a wonderful person I was and suddenly become different. She was always going to be like that. So I could continue going the hard way or I'd go the easy way. And I always say, do you want results or do you want to be right? So I had to swallow that. And I think, like I say, saying things like, I never thought about it that way, or I must read up a bit about that really helped because it just deflects. And as much as your integrity is important, you also have to see where they're coming from, and they're old and they're at a different time in their lives. They're not going to change. We're going to be the same one day. We're going to be sitting on couches and our children are going to be telling us about flying cars. We'll be like, that's ridiculous. I'll never get in a flying car. It's just dangerous. And our kids will be going, oh God, Mom, really? So I think it's about that. And also, when you're angry, then you're going to have a terrible time, and they're not going anywhere either. So you've got to decide, can I make this work? And if I can't, why can't I? Because you can't change them, so you have to work with what you've got. You don't have to change yourself, you just have to tone down certain aspects and bring up others.
Correct.
Hlubi, going to add anything to that?
I love my husband, and that's his mother.
Yeah.
I love my husband, and that's his mother. And as much as I say to my husband, just stand up for me, you know, stand up for me, you know. I understand how he was brought up, you know, I understand how close they are, you know, they went through a lot. She's done a lot. You know what, I look up to her because as a single mother who raised 2 boys and just had bad marriages in Kempton Park, sending them to high school, they're great men, they're great role models, they're successful in their careers, they inspire people, they're great civil servants.
Yes.
You know, I actually take off my hat to her. You know, so sometimes I feel that I just need to take a breather, and I can change, as Sam said. You know what I mean? I've got the ability to change. And at the end of the day, I don't want things to be left and said undone.
But at least you've got a good relationship.
We do. I love her.
Yeah, which is...
Because she's going to watch this.
But you do for real. That's
You know,
I
we
do.
can
I
see
see
that.
it. Yeah, I do.
Amidst the joshing.
Yeah, I do.
But I would anticipate, based on Sam's experience, that when the children arrive, that relationship is going to be different. Well, not going to be different. It'll change for the better.
For the better.
You'll never see them. You'll never see them.
Hand them over.
Are they grannies?
Oh wow, you'll never see them. You think you're struggling to go away for a weekend by yourselves now? You'll be sent away. No, go have some time together. No, I'm going to take the children. No, I will take the children away with you.
We don't go on holiday to our in-laws. They live in Cape Town, my in-laws. We don't go on they don't want to see us.
No.
They just want to see the children. I just happen to be there. And that's since the children arrived. Before that, you know, it was a much more of a sociable encounter. Now it's...
Oh, you don't matter at all.
If I say, I want to go off and go to the pub, meet some mates, get lost.
Go, bye, bye.
We don't want to see you. It's absolutely fine. Well, I think this has been the least theoretical and most anecdotal show we've ever had. But I think people would have learned lots of lessons, and I would have said, I'd like to think I've been vastly entertained by both of you. Though I had no doubt that would happen. That wouldn't happen. It's been fabulous chatting to you both. Sam, Hlubi, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we go, so you're writing books?
I am.
And what are you doing?
I am creating spaces for young entrepreneurs.
You're going
You see, overachieving again.
Well, you've now won that battle as we go full circle.
Yes.
Can you give us a sense of what that's about?
It's just about development and hopefully acquiring internships and bursaries to really great, not necessarily just African, but international institutions. And we want to start at school level. That's where we want to start the entrepreneurial skills and tools and mindset. It's important.
That's fantastic. Well, I wish you all the best with that. Best-selling author.
You
Come
know,
on.
you
That
know.
is about as overachieving as Hlubi's doing. Don't sell yourself short. My
I
thanks.
love this woman. Come here.
Well, we'll allow that moment of love, and that's where we end this particular Iris session.
Inspired.
My thanks to Sam. My
Love you.
thanks to Hlubi as well. We look forward to seeing you on next month's Iris session. From me, David O'Sullivan. Bye-bye.